Hey, Misa, welcome back to Keep What You Earn. How are ya?
I'm doing well, Shannon. Thank you for having me again. Happy to be
Of
back.
course. Well, for most of people listening, this might be the first time they've heard you because it's been a minute and it's been like 500 episodes later. I think Misa was like in my first 20 episodes of Keep What You Earn. She's an
I
OG guest,
was. Yes, I was. So, yeah, it's been a
original
minute.
guest. Yes. So, and for those that don't know, Misa is a bookkeeper. She is one of my most top recommended bookkeepers. I can say that confidently. I have loved sending people your way just because of your approach. And would you mind just sharing with those listening who you tend to work with, a little bit about your business and how you kind of found a love for bookkeeping? That would be awesome.
Of course. So, I'm Misa, and I am the owner of Perfectly Kept Books, which explains how I like my books to be in perfect order. So,
Hmm.
as far as bookkeeping goes, my favorite people, well, one, I love working with women. My mission was to be able to support women in business because they are the ones who need the most support. And if we dig even further, we go into creatives or service based businesses because, one, like I'm a service provider. So I understand what it means to, you want to support your clients and do well, but you still need help on the bookkeeping side of things because you just don't have time for it. So those are my areas of bookkeeping that I love to serve people in. And when it comes to perfectly kept books, I approach it from like I'm just your friend. Like I'm not anyone special. I'm not, some foreign person that like you don't understand what's happening. I approach it from like we're friends. We're going to talk things through. Like, what do you need? Let's sit down. Let's chat. You need to vent. Let's vent. Like, let's get things together because I don't want the bookkeeping to be frustrating or overwhelming or stressful because it shouldn't be. It should be simple. It should be easy and it should be accessible. So that's my approach when it comes to bookkeeping, and I just love everything about it.
And I couldn't agree more that it's like simple, easy, accessible is really what it should be. And it can be, but let's talk about why people don't think it is that way. Like the whole reason why you have this mission to Misa is because this isn't the widely held belief. And I think you're on a mission to change that too. Why do you think people uh, think of it as complicated, more of a hassle, maybe an obligation, all of those things? What contributes to that impression we have of bookkeeping?
I think in general, just when we think of like the world of accounting, it's like this vague thing and no one really knows any answers. No one knows what's happening. No one knows like what is this? And there's all these weird words and terms and things you should know. And us being in the accounting space, we understand it because I mean, that's what we do all day. But just your average everyday business owner, they have no idea what half of the stuff is. And it's very confusing because it's not simple. Just like going, if you go look at the IRS website, they have everything you would possibly need to know. But the information is so confusing, it's hard to find, and it doesn't make sense. And so, what we as professionals should do in the field is help to make all the information that is available, make it easier for people to understand, make it easier for people to access, make it just easy in general because that's how it should be. Running a business is hard enough. Like bookkeeping shouldn't be one of those pieces that's hard because
Yeah.
bookkeeping is so important to the business. And so it's something that everyone needs to understand and need to know. But if you don't understand what's going on, like how can you actually build a very successful business when you have no idea what's happening or what half of this stuff is or what it means?
Yeah. And a lot of people think that it's really important to the business from I call it part of the stay out of trouble work. People think of it as, which is I'm just trying to do what I gotta do to file my taxes and to get all of the stuff done that I need to get done, that it's like the necessary thing. But can you just expand on that as bookkeeping as an actual value add, not just a need to do?
I didn't get your question. I didn't
Ah,
get your question. You cut
um,
out.
okay. So I know that a lot of people will do their bookkeeping because they have to, because it's like the stay out of trouble work. They have to file their taxes, they have to get all this stuff done, but they don't see bookkeeping necessarily as a value add in and of itself. They see it as something that's like a necessary thing to do in order to get all that stuff done. What is your perspective on bookkeeping as a true value added thing in your business?
Bookkeeping is the actual thing that you should be using to run your business. So when you're trying to think of, okay, well, what should I do next? Or what income streams are actually making me money? Where am I spending my money? Like what's actually going on? Your bookkeeping will literally tell you that. Because I know I talk to people all the time. And when we walk through like their P&L, their profit and loss report, we walk through those things. Like I tell people, don't have sales as your income category. What is that? Like, what is sales? Break that down, because if you have 3-4 different income streams, you need to know which one is making you money. Because if one is making more, but you've been putting effort and time into something else, you might need to shift gears. And that's where the bookkeeping will tell you, it will literally tell you what to do. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is when you're doing it and you're keeping up with it, you don't have to question, well, what should I do next? Or, well, what offer should I focus on? Or should I just cancel this offer? Or what should I do? Just look at your bookkeeping and it's literally going to tell you.
So it literally can tell you, but it doesn't always tell you. And this is a big thing, is the customization. I think a lot of people underestimate how much they have in control of how things look in their bookkeeping. I couldn't tell you how many people I've seen, especially in CFO On Demand and other stuff that we do, that they have sales, they have cost of goods sold, they have office expenses, they have other expenses. And it's like, that's not very insightful. And I go, yeah, of course it's not very insightful, because it's not really custom to you. Misa, how do you and other bookkeepers just like you customize this and make it more useful so they can actually turn that data into decisions?
So especially when I'm setting up books for clients, or just helping them set up their books. So I always say we can start with the basics. So start with, the generic categories that you have for most businesses, because there's some categories every business will have, and it makes sense. But then it's like, wait, what does your business actually need to track? Or what are things that are most important to you? So me as a bookkeeper, I probably have things in my books that a photographer doesn't have, because like I'm not buying camera equipment and supplies and things. So that's not in my books, but that's important for them, because they need to know how much have they spent on camera equipment. Versus me, I'm like, I'm not buying, I just have, normal everyday office supplies. So really just thinking what is really important for you to track and see, and how do you need to customize it. So we'll take a photographer, for example. If yes, you're a photographer, but what type of shoots do you do? Are you a wedding photographer, but then you also do like mini shoots on the side? Do you want to see how much your mini shoots are bringing in versus like your wedding? It's really helpful to see, well, okay, my mini sessions, they are helping to supplement my downtimes when I don't have weddings. So it's very, very important to really customize to your business. Not every business is the same. And that's what's important. Like, yes, we're all businesses. Like, we all have income, we all have expenses, but the business itself is different. Because even if we think about even me and Shannon, we're in the same space and industry, but she's probably tracking things that I'm not tracking, just because she probably has things that she needs to see, because look, she has a podcast. I don't have a podcast. So she probably has expenses that I don't have. So it's really customizing it for you and your business. And the thing about it is, you can do it. Like, no one is saying, don't change that wording. Don't put it this way. Because what's most important is how the report looks to you. Your CPA, when they get it and they do your taxes, they're going to put it to the category that they need to, because they can do that. But for you, when you're looking at it, you want to look at those reports and say, yes, I spent this much in supplies, and I know what those supplies are. It's not just generic, and it's not other or miscellaneous, because that tells no one anything. So just making sure that it's clear and easy for you to understand, so that when you're looking at those reports, it's clear and you're not like, I don't know where my income is coming from. You can actually see it when you actually break it down and customize it.
Yeah, that's so crucial. And there's this kind of give and take, though, too. I want to talk about this where there's the over customization as well. So there's the under customization where you're using all the standard accounts and maybe all the generic stuff, and it's not really giving you any real insights. But then there's also, at a certain point, there's diminishing returns, right? When you're tracking it too granularly and it's too
Yes.
much effort.
Yes. So you don't want hundreds of accounts on your reports. Like, you don't need that. Because the beautiful thing, and this is why I encourage using a system and technology, is when you have QuickBooks, for instance, the data is in there. You can run all kinds of fun reports when you have the data in there. So, for instance, we have advertising and marketing. Maybe you probably know what falls in your advertising and marketing category, but you don't want to list every single thing. You don't want to list my website and, my ads, and you don't have to list every single thing. But what you can do is, okay, let me look at what am I paying for this month or this year. You can actually dive into it and run reports, and then you can see. You don't have to put every single line on your report, because that's not what the report is for. The report is just to kind of give you a good overview of this is what's going on. And then when you see numbers or things that kind of look odd, then you can dig deeper. And you have the data there to actually do it. And that's what I love. And I love to show people, like, these are the reports you can run. And when clients ask me for reports, if they're like, hey, what is this? Or can you send me a report on what this breakdown is? I can literally just run one little report. It's not even hard because the information is already there. And of course, their books are up to date. So it's not like I have to update the books really quick and then send them a report. Nope, log in, pull the report, and they have what they need. And that's what you want bookkeeping to do. Because if you are at a point where maybe you are kind of like auditing, let's say, apps and software that you have, and you're like, okay, well, I've spent $10,000 on some software and apps for this year. What in the world am I doing? You can go and actually see, okay, what all did I spend for the year? Then you can really look through and say, okay, am I using this? Am I not using this? Oh, I'm using this, but I'm not using it to the full capacity. Or I have two of the same things. I need to cancel this. That's when you can really just dive a little bit deeper, but it starts with making sure it's in the right place and making sure it's updated. And then you can just run reports and dive deeper as you need to.
Yeah. And the way I put it too, Misa, is getting clarity on the questions you want answered. So it's what are the questions that you need to be answering on a regular basis? And then how can we deliver those answers in the form of the financial statements? Because what I think it's overlooked is how much you can use your financial data to answer some of those burning questions. Like, what is my most profitable offer? You can figure that out. You could actually do income from each of your offers and then figure out the cost for each of your offers and categorize it so that you can come up with that really easily. And you can just all these different features of your bookkeeping software too. Like, there's different dimensions of QuickBooks, not just in the accounts, but there's things called classes and projects and all that other stuff too that I think get underutilized. And I think that that's where a lot of the value is in having a professional like you to help decode that and to give guidance on how to use the tool to get the answers you need as quickly as possible.
Exactly. And I will add to that is when you do use software, the beautiful thing is now you have historical data. So, because one of my favorite things to do is to pull up a report, and you can pull in all the dates and then separate it by years, and you can literally compare. And you can see, like, have you been growing from year to year? Maybe this year wasn't as good, so it's lower. But like, to be able to see that, it can be so empowering and so encouraging as well, because sometimes you're in it all the time and you're just like, I don't think anything's working, or I don't feel like I'm moving in the direction I want to. But then when you actually sit back and you look and you're like, wow, I doubled my income. And you didn't even realize it because you probably weren't thinking about it at the time. But just being able to have that information readily available is so helpful, especially in those times where you're just like, is this actually working? You can actually kind of go back and say, it is working and I'm doing well. And I just need to keep pushing forward. So that's what I love about it too.
Yeah, it's that feedback for you, right? It's your feedback to know what's actually making money, what isn't. But it's also it's not that different than you go on social media, you get insights, right? And I feel like people are less we'll say less hesitant to read those reports because they want to see like how their follower counts growing or your engagement rate. And I go, these are just other metrics. This is just another thing. It's just because it's money. I feel like it carries a lot of weight, shame, and stigma
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a scary topic for people. Could you touch on that a little bit in terms of how important it is to make bookkeeping approachable, especially to those who have a different money story?
Oh, I could go on all day about this just because when it comes, we're humans. And as humans, we all carry so many different stories and so many different things. And so with my approach, I understand that. So when I come to someone or they come to me, I don't approach them like, oh, they have their stuff together. They know everything about money. They feel confident. I always approach it. I'm just open because some people, they come to me and they're just like, this is scary. I don't know what's happening. I'm freaking out. Like, I think I'm going to do something wrong. I just don't know what's happening. And a lot of that is coming from their own money story where it's like, I feel like I'm not going to make enough money. There's not, there's not going to be clients that are going to sign. Like all these fears and scarcity, and it's just things that we hold on to from childhood a lot of times that we've just carried with us. And when we think about the bookkeeper, we're like, it's money. So we automatically associate money with whatever that feeling is. And so I want people to feel more confident and comfortable when it comes to money because when you're comfortable, it's going to make things as far as running the business so much easier because you can't get away from the money. You can't avoid it. It's
Yeah,
necessary. It's important because a business has to make money. So you can't avoid it. So if you can make it a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more exciting, so you're like, oh, let me go look at my numbers. Then you can also kind of help to heal some of those money wounds that you probably have because then it's like, I have to face this. Whatever this is that I'm holding on to, I actually have to look it in the face and say, no, no, you're not going to hold me back from building a beautiful and successful business.
totally agree. Now, if we shift gears a little bit to, I want to talk about hiring a bookkeeper to help you with this because not every bookkeeper feels accessible from a price standpoint, or a lot of business owners think they're just not ready to hire a bookkeeper yet. Number one, can you just share with our listeners, because I know you have an excellent resource for those who do want to DIY or want to dip their feet in the water on getting their own books done. But then I want to talk about how you know you're ready to hire somebody and what to look for in that professional. So can you just tell us a little bit about the resources that you have?
Yes. So my approach as a bookkeeper, every bookkeeper may not agree, but for me, especially in the beginning stages, I believe a business owner needs to do their own books, even if it's just for a little bit, just so that they can kind of dig in, see what's happening, understand what's supposed to be happening, what they're looking at, have just a good basic understanding. I'm not saying become a bookkeeping pro, but at least have a basic understanding so that when you get to the point where you're like, okay, I need a bookkeeper, you can hand it off confidently and not just completely blind, which is what I see a lot of people do. They're like, oh, I'm ready to hire a bookkeeper. They just hand it off, and then it's like they have no idea what's going on. And the bookkeeper could literally be doing anything, and you have no idea because you've never been in the books. You don't understand what's happening or what you should be seeing, and you can't question them, which I think is important. You should be able to question your bookkeeper because at the end of the day, these are your books. Yes, your bookkeeper is managing it for you, but these are your books. These are your numbers. You are in charge of them, and you want to be able to provide a little bit of oversight to the bookkeeper so that we can be on the same page. We're a team, so we want to be in this together, and it should be something that you can comfortably do. You can go to your bookkeeper and say, this doesn't look right, or I have a
Yeah.
question, and they should be there for you to answer or verify and make corrections and it's not a problem. Like no one is upset. It's just like, oh, okay. Thank you for pointing that out.
Very true. And I think you hit it spot on that you should be able to question your bookkeeper. I want to do a little like speed round with you, Misa. This would be kind of fun. Of like, you may need a new bookkeeper if, and then fill in the blank.
Okay.
Um, I would. I'm gonna kick it off while you think of one. But I think you need a new bookkeeper if you ask questions and they respond with, "Don't worry, it's right."
Ooh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because that doesn't,
Yeah.
just because they say
The
it's right doesn't make it right.
Yeah. Or they don't answer the questions actually. And where that's coming from is there are people in that I've met through the podcast, through people listening, who've shared these stories with me of bookkeepers, and they're like, I asked my bookkeeper about this and she's like, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. And it's like, I wasn't saying you didn't know what you're doing. I'm just saying I want to learn, or I want to understand the why behind it, or I'm just trying to figure out the story, right? Because they're authoring the story and you're the main character. So you want to figure out, hey, wait, I didn't do that, or that wasn't part of my story. Why is it in my books? And if you're just highlighting those things and helping them, that's really key. And then I'll also add one more to that, which is that they never ask you any questions. That's another red flag for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Your bookkeeper should be asking you questions. They should be, because they're in it day to day. They are seeing things that, you're probably not even paying much attention to because you're just, going along with your day. But one, it's important that they need to know what things are so that they can categorize it correctly, because it needs to go in the right place. So if they're not questioning you and they're just putting all of your Amazon purchases and office supplies when you can literally buy anything off of Amazon, that's not a good thing. We want to question what things are so that we're putting them in the right place, because then if they're in the wrong place, that's not helpful to you.
Totally agree. Have you run across any other sort of like signs that somebody should probably be considering either a new bookkeeper or just like resetting their expectations with their professional?
Yes, this is probably very simple, and people will probably be like, I didn't think that I could even think this, but if you don't like them, plain and simple, if you do not like your bookkeeper, that is a problem, because this is someone who is potentially a long-term partner with you in your, they are a partner in your business. They are someone helping you, and they probably know more about your business than most people. Like, of course, you as the business owner, you know it all, but your bookkeeper probably knows a lot, and they probably know personal things about you as well. So you want to make sure that when you have to interact with this person, it's a pleasant experience. You actually like them. All of my clients, they enjoy talking to me. They like to be around me. And that's part of the reason they want me as their bookkeeper, because they actually like me. I have heard people, they're just like, I don't really like my bookkeeper very much. And I'm like, that is a red flag, because that's not how it should be. Like, there are tons and tons of professionals out there, and you want to pick someone who you gel well with. Like, that's plain and simple. You find the right person for you. Everyone is not going to be your match, but there is someone who will match the same personality that you have, or understand your personality at least. Because if you're someone who's like, I need you to hold my hand, you need a bookkeeper who's going to be patient and they can sit there and hold your hand. Or if you need someone who's like, hey, I'm on top of my stuff, I just need you to be able to, if I ask a question, can you please just respond to me in a timely manner? That's all I need. Then you need someone who can communicate well. Well, everyone should communicate well, but especially your bookkeeper. But just
Yeah.
things
You
to
should
think
be
about that we
interviewing
don't
for them.
typically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you should be. I think what people misunderstand is that I need to hire a bookkeeper, and the only qualification is they call themselves a bookkeeper because they can handle
Mm-hmm.
it better than me. And I'm like, yeah, that's level one of like that's what a bookkeeper can do is do the books a little bit better than you, hopefully, if you don't have any background in it. But beyond that, I think people misunderstand how much choice they have in who they choose to work with, or the amount that they have control over the traits, qualities, and values of these people if you're really intentional about what you're searching for. Do you agree?
I agree, 100%, 100%. because
It's so
I
funny. For those
think
listening
a
who just
lot
felt like a thing of silence, Misa was just nodding her head.
because I think people forget that although you are hiring a professional, someone who should know what they're doing, and they're going to take something off your plate and all those things, we still want, like, we're humans and we want to make sure that we're interacting as humans. So if you know that you're like, hey, I want someone that I can call on the phone, and if they want to chat, I want to be able to chat with them. That's that's what you want your experience to be. Think about that. Think about the experience that you actually want. Because I have varying degrees of experiences with all of my clients. Some clients, they I don't hear from them most of the time, and that's okay because they're able to do what they need to do, and they don't have to worry about the books. Like, they don't have to worry about it. But I know if I need something or if they need something, we're there for each other. So it's never an issue of, oh, I haven't heard from you in a little while. Well, how are things going? It's never an issue. And a lot of times I've heard where, like, they never hear from their bookkeeper, like, ever. And that's a problem because if they're in your books, something should come up at some point. Something, even if it's just, hey, just checking in on you, making sure everything's okay, or okay, let's double check these transactions, or hey, can we just do a check-in meeting? Maybe some things have changed, because that happens too. Maybe you're making changes in your business and you just need to update them just so that they can understand, hey, you're going to see some changes in the books, so this is what we need to change and we need to adjust. So it's having open communication and just in constant communication. Like, I'm not saying talk to your bookkeeper every day. You don't have to do that, but you should be hearing from them at least on some type of consistent basis.
Yeah. And I think there should be an open forum, an open line of communication where you're welcome to share what's going on. Because one thing that I think is a misunderstanding among bookkeepers and business owners, and really any accounting professional in general, which bookkeepers are part of that group for me, is that the bookkeeper is expecting the business owner to keep them aware of what's going on. The business owner isn't really always getting provoked or getting, poked on the shoulder and say, hey, like, what's going on? So they may not remember that it would be really valuable to share, like, a big business trip that's coming up, and the fact that you're going to be on travel and have all these expenses, like explaining what's really going on in the business so that the bookkeeper knows the story that they're writing. Like, they're fully aware of what the characters are up to as they're writing this story in the form of the books. And, no pun intended with books and story, but I really do feel like this is the story of your money for the year. And it's really important to understand all the main characters, because that's really what they're asking. It's just like, well, wait, hey, this character just got inserted. Who the hell is this? And it's like these new vendors or new employees, like, you want to know what's going on. And I feel like there should be an open line of communication to get those updates so your bookkeeper can be a peer that you go to and not just somebody who's chasing the information behind. And that's one thing I always say.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think it's great too. Like, some of my clients I follow on social media, and believe it or not, it helps me do my bookkeeping because they might post something on their
It does.
story and they're like, "Hey, I'm speaking at this event right now," and I'm like, "Ah, so when I see that charge come through, or I see some airline tickets, I know exactly what it's for." So it's actually helping me, and I don't
Yep.
even have to ask them because I just know automatically. So I love that. I love to be connected to my clients because, one, I also don't like to, like, bother them if I don't have to. If I can get the
Right.
information, whether that's me finding it, through social media, or they just, they let me know in advance, or whatever our system is, I'm completely okay with that because my job is to get them the information that they need that's necessary, and I try not to bother them too much because I want them to be able to run their business and not really worry about the books, but they know they're going to get the information they need when they need it.
Absolutely. That's huge too, is the level of interaction and the mutual respect you have as professionals. Um, let's talk about, I want to go right in on the direct question here, which is bookkeeping and how much it should cost you as a business owner, because I feel like, to my point before, people will go hire anyone who calls themselves a bookkeeper, right? Anyone who knows a little bit more than they
Mm-hmm.
do. And we're seeing that a lot of this outsourced bookkeeping going abroad, going overseas, and a lot
Mm,
of VAs who also do a side of bookkeeping, a lot of people who identify as bookkeepers sometimes, a lot of people on Upwork and Fiverr, not shading Upwork and Fiverr, but there are a lot of people on there that will create bookkeeper profiles that maybe they don't have a ton of training, or they do 18 different things and this is just one of them. How can we help business owners listening sift through some of this stuff to find the right professional to work with? Like, what are the things that they can be looking for, or what are the prices they should be expecting to find somebody who knows what they're doing?
so there's actually a couple things to consider because one, what type of bookkeeper do you want? Because you could hire someone like me. So like I'm like an independent bookkeeper. So you're probably going to get a little bit more personalized experience because you're working with me. So you're going to get a little bit of Misa. But there's also like large corporations also offer bookkeeping services, which I still think it's great because everyone needs bookkeeping, and depending on what level of service and what you need, that's how you want to determine kind of how, like, which route you want to go. Because the large corporations, they might be a little bit cheaper, but that's because one, they're large corporations. So they're employing teams and they're able to charge a little bit less because they have systems in place and they have certain things in order that makes it to where they can charge less because they're probably serving more clients, and you're not going to have as much personalization. It's going to be very, very straightforward because they're going to follow a process. That is what the corporation does, which I think is great because there are people who are like, I just need someone to do it. I don't need too much personalization. Just do my books. But then if you do want that personal touch, or you're like, I want to have like a little bit of a closer relationship, and you do go to a bookkeeper like me, you might see the rate a little bit higher. And that's just because, I mean, it's me. It's me doing it.
Yeah.
And not just doing it, but I am giving you some personalization. I am probably communicating with you a little bit more than what you're getting from either someone else or like the corporation. You could possibly call me on the phone. You could, you could say, hey, can we meet today? And I can organize my schedule, or, we can have some flexibility where I can meet you where you are. So it depends on what you need as a business owner, like what you really need, and being honest about that. If you're like, I like the cheaper option because that's what I can afford right now, but I actually need that personalization. That's something to consider. So then it's like, well, what do I need to do to make sure that I can get the best bookkeeper for me? And then when it comes to rates, well, there's all kinds of rates. It depends on what they're doing. So I will say, if you're looking for like an independent bookkeeper like me, I will say the cheaper is usually not always the best. Usually. They're probably cheaper for a couple of reasons. Like, they might not be the strongest bookkeeper. They might not have as much experience. They might be just getting started. So that's something to consider. And also, you might not just have the best experience. Sometimes it's almost like, well, hey, I can get you on my client roster and we're going to get you moving, and you probably will never hear from them. Versus if you are working with someone who's charging a little bit more, say 450 plus, you're probably going to have, I can't make guarantees, but
Yeah.
you will probably have a little bit better experience just because there's probably a little bit more that's going into the client service part of it. And it's not just, I'm doing your bookkeeping, because yes, I am doing your bookkeeping, but I'm also providing you excellent service. I am literally there for you. Like, if you need me to step in and help you do something, I can probably do it. Like, for example, I have a
Yeah.
client they were going out on medical leave, and they were like, hey, Misa, can you help me do this piece while I'm out on medical leave? Because it's a part of my business that needs to happen to run. Like, being able to have a bookkeeper in your corner that could step in. I'm not saying your bookkeeper doesn't have to do that, but I'm saying being able to have someone who could possibly, you could lean on to assist you in some areas that you probably wouldn't expect. That is invaluable. And if you value that type of thing, you would pay just a little bit more for that.
Yeah, I agree. It's also, I mean, it just comes down to you have to pay for what you want and what you know will make you successful. I look at it as I use this analogy all the time, Misa, where I say, you can do it cheaper, but a table with three legs doesn't really do the job. Like, can you cut a little discount off of that? Like, well, theoretically, but and customers have asked me this too. They'll say, "Can you discount your services and give me less services?" And I said, "Well, my goal is to make you as successful as I can." And in my mind, the recipe that I've cooked up is the recipe for success for you. Therefore, I'm going, wait a minute. If I take out an element of this, then I am risking your success. And I'm making it so that I'm sacrificing an element that I would consider essential to your business growth and achieving your goals. So no, I can't, because the price I have is the price for your success. And if I cut corners on any of that stuff, it lowers the likelihood of that success happening. And this is how I've designed my service based on my expertise and experience, that this is what's going to happen if we don't have that. It literally is a table with three legs, table with one leg, right, on one corner. It's not going to stand up. So we have to make sure that we're first focusing on the goals that they have and saying, like, what is it you're trying to achieve? Because you can go with, that carpenter who makes the table with three legs. Yes, it will be cheaper, but it won't be as useful.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think that, and I think that a lot of folks, they'll try to do their own bookkeeping for their first 6 months to a year. And I don't necessarily discourage that. I think you agree with me that, it's better than nothing. Books done is better than books not done, even if they're not perfectly kept. But what recommendations do you have for folks who are maybe in their first year or two? They don't have a bookkeeper yet that's dedicated. They know they need to get it done. What are some of the solutions available to them if they feel like, I'm just not at a level yet where I feel like I can hire that person out? I'm just kind of pre that stage.
So there's a couple of things you could do. You could go the very, very manual route and just have a spreadsheet. You could have a spreadsheet and you're just keeping track of everything that's happened on a spreadsheet. That way, at least you know this is how much I made and this is how much I spent. A spreadsheet will be very manual, and you probably won't want to use it too long, because as your business grows, as things keep moving, you're not going to have time to update a spreadsheet. So typically what I actually recommend is picking a bookkeeping software. Pick any one. If you want to try them all, see which one you like, doesn't matter. Pick one. Start to use it while things are fresh and new, and while you just have a few transactions coming in. That way you can get comfortable with the system. You can learn it. You actually have a little bit of time to learn it, because it's like you don't have all this stuff happening right now. So then that way, when you get to the point where business is rolling, hopefully you've been keeping up with the books that you have, and it's an easy transition to hire a bookkeeper to come in and take over for you. And it's not a huge, I've been keeping a spreadsheet for 3 years and now I want to hire a bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper is going to be like, I'm not touching your spreadsheet. So you're going to have to get on software. So if you just kind of set yourself up for success in the beginning, and just even if it is 3 transactions, do you know where those 3 transactions belong? Are you categorizing them? Those 3 transactions, are you categorizing them in the right place? That way, when that bookkeeper comes in, they'll be surprised, because most bookkeepers are like, I'm going to have to clean up these books. But if you can just easily hand it over and transition, it's going to be good for both you and the bookkeeper. And then you're also going to know, okay, I've done this a little bit. I'm a little bit comfortable, so I know what to expect. So if this bookkeeper is not doing what I expect, I know I probably need to find another one, or we need to have a conversation, whatever the case may be.
Right. Absolutely. So Misa, for those listening who want to start their own bookkeeping journey, what is the best way to get in touch with you, learn from you, or utilize the resources that you have available to them?
Definitely check out my website. So perfectlykeptbooks.com. I have so many goodies on there for you. So I have a resources page. There's all kinds of things there. I have blogs. You can read them. I have, I really, really, really want everyone to be as successful as possible when it comes to bookkeeping, even if you don't have a bookkeeper. So even if you want to reach out to me and just, hey, ask me a question, I am open to that. I love answering questions. And I also have a service where you can just ask me questions. So if you want to book and ask a bookkeeper session with me, you can definitely do that. And that's, we can record it so you can have a copy of it and all of that. So that's, I just really want to help on the bookkeeping side of things because I have literally seen the difference it makes when you actually take the bookkeeping serious and you have it in order. And not only does it make your life easier, it's going to make your tax professional's life easier and they are going to love you. I always tell people that because the
Yep.
tax people when they see clean books, they are shocked. They are like, who did these books? And that's what we want. That's what we want because we're all working together and that's how I see it. We're one big team.
Yep.
And if anything, I'm that bridge. So the bookkeeper is usually the bridge between the business owner and the tax person when it comes to the tax side. But we're all a team. And so we're all working together. So we want to make everyone's job easier. So that's how we all just collaborate and make it work.
Absolutely love it. Misa, as always, thank you for this conversation. I always love talking to you because you can make anybody excited about bookkeeping. I just love
I
it.
know.
You're so passionate about it, and I hope that that extends to our audience as well.
I hope so. I want you to be excited too.